Human touches the alien girl's hand in the dark, and the alien girl says sparks formed his silhouette. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character. Ethan Parker, a young space explorer, found himself stranded on a foreign planet. His spacecraft, damaged beyond repair, had crash-landed in a dark, eerie forest. The stars above were obscured by a heavy mist, and the silence of the place was unsettling. Ethan had spent the last few hours trying to assess the damage, but his efforts were in vain. There was no communication system working, no way to contact home, and no signs of civilization anywhere. His only companion in this vast, alien world was the strange, persistent feeling that he was not alone. As the night wore on, Ethan felt the temperature drop sharply. The darkness around him seemed to grow thicker, pressing in on him like a weight. He tightened the straps on his jacket and glanced around, scanning the unfamiliar terrain for any sign of life. Then, just as he was about to give up and try to sleep in the cockpit, he saw it. A soft, glowing light in the distance. He instinctively moved towards it, his footsteps muffled by the thick undergrowth. As he got closer, the glow became more defined, revealing a figure standing still in the midst of the forest. It was a girl, her skin shimmering like stardust, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Her figure seemed almost ethereal, as if she were part of the mist itself. Ethan froze for a moment, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks on him. The girl stood silently, watching him with an intensity that made him feel both nervous and curious. Slowly, she raised her hand, offering it to him. Ethan hesitated, but something inside him urged him to take it. As his fingers brushed against hers, a strange warmth spread through his body. The moment their hands touched, a spark, almost like static. Electricity, jumped between them, and for a brief second, the air around them seemed to crackle with energy. The girl smiled softly, her voice barely a whisper. "Sparks formed your silhouette," she said, her tone both mysterious and comforting. Ethan didn't understand what she meant, but something about the way she said it felt important. He stared at her, his heart racing. Who was she? What did she mean? Before he could ask, the girl turned and began walking away, disappearing into the mist. Ethan stood there, his hands still tingling from the touch, and wondered if the strange encounter had been real. But one thing was certain, the moment he touched her hand, something had changed inside him, something he couldn't quite explain. I stood there, my hands still tingling from the touch of the alien girl. The mist around me seemed to move in waves, as if alive, and I could still feel the strange warmth where our fingers had met. Who was she? Why did I feel this connection, this inexplicable pull? I tried to shake the feeling, but it wouldn't go away. I looked around, hoping to find some sign, something that could explain what had just happened. But the forest was silent, as it had been since my crash. My eyes returned to where the girl had been standing, but there was no trace of her. She had vanished into the mist as though she had never been there at all. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Maybe it was just a dream. Maybe the isolation was messing with my mind. But the spark I had felt, was real. I could still feel it, like an echo deep inside me. I walked forward slowly, my boots crunching on the damp earth, my eyes scanning the fog in every direction. But there was no sign of the girl. As I moved deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and the mist seemed to thicken. The faintest hint of glowing light flickered in the distance, drawing me in like a magnet. This time, however, I wasn't so quick to approach. My heart raced, and I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I had to know what was going on, why this strange girl had appeared and why she had spoken to me in that cryptic way. The closer I got to the light, the clearer it became. It was her. She stood in the same spot as before, her glowing skin casting an otherworldly radiance through the fog. Her eyes met mine again, and for a moment, I felt as though we were the only two beings in existence. She didn't speak this time, but her gaze held a quiet intensity. Slowly, she extended her hand once more, the glowing tips of her fingers almost reaching for me. I hesitated, unsure if I should take her hand again. But something in her eyes told me this was different, that there was more to this encounter than I understood. Without thinking, I stepped forward and reached out. The moment our hands touched again, the same spark filled the air, only this time, it was stronger, more vivid. A surge of energy rushed through me, and I felt a flood of emotions, confusion, wonder, fear, all mixed together. It was as though her touch was unlocking something deep inside me, something I hadn't known was there. She looked at me, her eyes softening. "You're not like the others," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "You feel it too, don't you? The connection." I nodded, my mind spinning. I didn't know what she meant, but in that moment, I realized that I couldn't walk away. Something had changed inside me. Something I couldn't explain. Something I couldn't ignore. I stared at her, the words she had spoken echoing in my mind. "You feel it too, don't you? The connection." What did she mean by that? I didn't know how to respond. The words felt like a riddle, one that was beyond my understanding. But I knew something had shifted inside me. I could feel it in my chest, a deep, unfamiliar pull. The energy from her touch still buzzed through my fingertips, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were tied together by something far greater than chance. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words didn't come out. What could I say? How could I even begin to explain what was happening between us? Lyra, her name came to me suddenly, she was something I couldn't explain. She wasn't just an alien, she was more than that. She was something else. The quiet sound of the wind rustling through the trees filled the silence between us. The soft glow of her skin illuminated the mist around us, casting an almost surreal light. I felt like I was in a dream, one where the rules of reality no longer applied. "What is this?" I finally asked, my voice low but steady. She looked at me for a long moment, as though weighing whether to share more. Finally, she spoke. "You're not the first to come here," she said, her voice soft but carrying an unspoken weight. "But you are the first to feel it. The connection. It's rare." I took a step closer, drawn by her words and by something deeper I couldn't explain. "The connection?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. "Yes. The bond between us. It's what allows us to understand each other, even when we don't speak. It's what allows us to feel each other's presence, even across distances." I frowned, trying to grasp the concept. "But why me?" I asked. "Why now?" Lyra's eyes softened as she stepped closer to me. "You were chosen," she said simply. "The bond exists only with those who are meant to understand." I felt a chill run down my spine, though it wasn't from the cold. "Chosen?" I repeated. "By who?" She didn't answer right away, but I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of something deeper, something ancient. "The ones who watch," she said at last. "The ones who have always watched. They have seen you, and now they are waiting." The weight of her words settled over me like a heavy cloud. I didn't fully understand what she was saying, but I knew it was important. I knew she was important. She wasn't just some random alien. She was here for a reason, and that reason was somehow tied to me. The air between us grew still, and for a moment, we just stood there, silently connected by an unseen force. I wanted to ask her more, but the questions felt too overwhelming, too much for me to process at once. Instead, I found myself doing the only thing I could think of. I reached out again, my hand hovering just above hers. She didn't hesitate. She took my hand, and once again, the spark surged between us, more powerful than before. This time, I felt it deep inside me, in my very bones. I could hear her voice in my mind, soft but clear. "You are not alone anymore," she whispered, and I knew, without a doubt, that whatever was happening between us was only just beginning. I still felt the heat from Lyra's touch, a strange warmth that seemed to pulse through my very bones. The mist around us continued to swirl, thick and alive with movement, but it felt different now, charged, almost electric. I couldn't explain it, but the longer I stayed here with her, the more connected I felt to this alien world. The silence was almost unbearable, yet it was calming in a way. Lyra and I stood there for a long moment, her hands still in mine, the strange energy between us grounding me in a way I hadn't experienced before. Finally, she spoke again, her voice soft but clear. "You must understand, Ethan, this connection we share is not just physical. It is something deeper, something beyond your understanding of space and time." I tried to process her words, but they felt too large for my mind to fully grasp. "But what does it mean?" I asked, my voice almost lost in the heavy air. "Why is this happening?" Lyra's eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, I felt like she could see into my very soul. "It means you have been chosen to bridge the gap," she replied quietly. "To help bring balance." "Balance?" I echoed, confused. "Between what?" She paused, as if weighing the best way to explain. "Between the worlds," she said. "The worlds you know and the ones you don't. The ones beyond your reach, beyond your understanding. The ones that have watched and waited for someone like you." Her words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic. I felt my heart beat faster. "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaky now. "What am I supposed to do?" Lyra smiled gently, her expression soft, yet filled with an emotion I couldn't name. "You will know when the time comes," she said. "But for now, you must trust. Trust in the bond we share." I nodded slowly, still trying to piece everything together. My mind raced with questions, but I couldn't find the words to ask them. Instead, I simply looked at her, this mysterious being who seemed to hold the key to everything. Lyra took a step back, still holding my hand, and for the first time, I noticed something strange about her. The light that surrounded her flickered, almost as if it were fading. Her form seemed to shimmer, like the air around her was becoming less stable. "What's happening?" I asked, a sudden panic rising in my chest. Lyra's eyes softened, but there was an urgency in her voice now. "I must go, Ethan," she said. "But I will not be far. You will see me again when you are ready." Before I could speak, she released my hand and stepped back into the mist, her form disappearing slowly, leaving me alone in the eerie silence of the forest. I stood there for a long moment, my heart pounding in my chest, the weight of her words sinking in. The connection between us wasn't just something I could ignore, it was a part of me now. And whatever it was, whatever she meant by balance, I knew I had to follow this path, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. I stood there in the silence, my heart still racing, the weight of Lyra's words lingering in the air. The forest around me was still, almost too still, and I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness where she had been. The mist seemed to stretch on forever, obscuring everything beyond a few feet, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The strange warmth from her touch was fading, but the sensation in my chest, the connection, as she had called it, was still there. It felt like an invisible thread pulling me forward, urging me to follow, to understand what she meant. I glanced around, unsure of what to do next. The crash site felt like a lifetime ago, as though I had crossed into another reality entirely. The more I thought about it, the less sense anything made. But there was one thing I knew for sure, I couldn't ignore this. Whatever this bond was, it was real. And Lyra wasn't just a figment of my imagination. I had to find her again. I had to understand why she had chosen me. I started walking, my steps slow at first, unsure of where I was going or what I was looking for. The fog pressed in around me, thick and cold. The further I went, the more disoriented I became, as if the world itself was shifting, warping. The trees, if they could even be called trees, were unlike anything I had ever seen. Their trunks twisted in strange, almost unnatural ways, and their leaves shimmered like silver. I tried to focus, to push aside the feeling that I was being watched, but it was impossible. The forest felt alive, as though it were aware of my every movement. I walked for what seemed like hours, though I couldn't be sure of the time. The constant hum of the energy that Lyra had left behind still buzzed in my mind. Every step I took, I could feel it pulling me, guiding me deeper into the mist. Suddenly, I stopped. The air grew thicker, and in the distance, I saw something, a figure, faint at first, but growing clearer with each passing moment. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was Lyra. She was standing in front of me, her figure faintly glowing, just like before. But this time, something was different. Her expression was more serious, almost solemn, and there was a sense of urgency in the way she looked at me. "You've come," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "You felt it, haven't you?" I nodded, unsure of how to explain what had been happening to me. "Yes," I said. I feel connected to you. But I don't understand what this is. What is it that I'm supposed to do?" She stepped closer, and this time, the energy between us was even stronger. It pulsed through the air like an electric current, and I felt it in my very bones. "The time is near," she said. "You must prepare yourself. The balance that is needed will only come when you accept what you are meant to do. The connection between us will guide you." Her words were cryptic, but the gravity behind them was undeniable. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had been leading up to this moment. That somehow, I was destined to play a role in something much larger than myself. "How do I prepare?" I asked, my voice quiet. Lyra's gaze softened, and she placed a hand over her heart, as if sharing a silent message with me. "Trust in the bond," she said softly. "It will show you the way." And with that, she stepped back, fading into the mist once more, leaving me standing alone, the weight of her words settling heavily on my shoulders. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure: my journey had only just begun. I stood in the mist, alone once more, but this time something had shifted inside me. Lyra's words echoed in my mind, like a beacon calling me to something unknown, something far greater than I could understand. The forest around me remained eerily still, but there was a sense of urgency now. I could feel it in the air, like a current running through the very ground beneath my feet. The connection between us had grown stronger, and I knew that I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to follow. But where? I looked around, feeling the weight of the silence press in on me. There was no sign of Lyra, no trace of the path she had taken. All I had was the vague sense of direction she had given me: trust in the bond. It sounded simple, but it felt like more. My mind raced with questions, yet the answers were just out of reach. What was this balance she spoke of? Why had I been chosen? And what was I meant to do with the power, the bond, that connected us? As I walked deeper into the forest, the mist swirling around me, I began to feel something else. A strange pull, a quiet whisper in the back of my mind urging me to go further. I followed it, though the path seemed to shift with each step. The forest seemed alive, changing, reacting to my presence. The trees bent and swayed as if they were watching me, listening. I couldn't tell how much time had passed, minutes, hours, days. Everything seemed blurred, as though time itself didn't exist here. Suddenly, a light appeared in the distance. It was faint at first, just a glow in the dark, but it grew stronger as I walked toward it. My heart quickened, and I felt the connection between Lyra and I flare again, as though she was waiting for me. The light wasn't just an ordinary glow, it was her. There, in the center of the mist, Lyra stood, bathed in the same radiant light I had seen before. But this time, she wasn't alone. Surrounding her were figures, shadowy forms, not quite human but not entirely alien either. They stood still, watching me, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I stopped in my tracks, uncertainty gripping me. Who are they? I asked, my voice a whisper. Lyra didn't answer at first. Instead, she stepped forward, her face soft but serious. They are the ones who watch, she said. The ones who have always waited for you. I felt a chill run down my spine. The figures stepped closer, their forms becoming clearer with each passing moment. Their eyes seemed to pierce right through me, but there was no malice in their gaze. Only expectation. You are ready, Lyra continued. You are ready to join them. I didn't fully understand, but I felt something in me stirring. The pull inside me, the bond, was stronger than ever. It was as though the universe itself was aligning, guiding me toward this moment. I took a tentative step forward, my feet moving on their own, as if drawn by an invisible force. As I moved closer to Lyra and the figures, the air around me seemed to hum with energy. A quiet voice, not my own but somehow inside my head, whispered, "Trust." It was all I needed. I stepped forward, and as I did, the figures moved aside, allowing me to stand at the center of the gathering. Lyra reached out and took my hand once more. This time, the energy between us was unlike anything I had ever felt. It wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, emotional, an overwhelming sense of unity. The light around us seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat, and for the first time, I understood. I wasn't alone. The bond was real. And whatever the future held, I was ready to face it, together with Lyra, and the ones who had waited for me. I stood in the center of the gathering, surrounded by Lyra and the shadowy figures. The air was thick with energy, and the light that surrounded us seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. It was as if the very fabric of the universe had bent to this moment, drawing me into something I couldn't fully comprehend. Yet, deep inside, I knew I was where I was meant to be. Lyra squeezed my hand, her touch reassuring yet filled with an urgency I couldn't ignore. You are ready, she whispered again, her voice steady but filled with unspoken meaning. The figures around us remained still, their glowing eyes fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. They weren't threatening, but there was an undeniable weight to their gaze. They were watching, waiting, as if they had been waiting for this moment for eons. I took a deep breath and turned to Lyra, my mind racing with questions. What now? I asked, my voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Lyra didn't respond immediately. Instead, she gazed at me with a look that was both soft and profound, as though she were considering something important. Finally, she spoke, her words carrying a sense of finality. Now you must understand, she said, her eyes never leaving mine. You are not just connected to me. You are part of something much larger. The bond we share is the key to restoring the balance between worlds. It is a power that has existed for as long as time itself. My heart pounded in my chest. Balance between worlds. I repeated, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. What do you mean? Lyra took a step forward, her form glowing brighter in the mist. There are worlds beyond this one, worlds that exist alongside yours. Some are similar to your own, while others are so different that they can hardly be imagined. But all of these worlds are connected, and they rely on balance to survive. She paused, as if gathering her thoughts. That balance has been disrupted. Forces have arisen that threaten to tear apart the fabric of everything. And that is where you come in, Ethan. You are the bridge, the one who can restore that balance. My mind was spinning. A bridge between worlds. I was just a man, stranded on a strange planet, with no idea what was happening. Yet, as Lyra spoke, I felt the weight of her words sink into me. It was like the bond between us, the energy I had felt since that first moment we touched, was beginning to take shape, becoming something tangible. But how? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How can I possibly fix this? I don't even know where to begin. Lyra's gaze softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something like hope in her eyes. You don't need to know everything, Ethan, she said gently. The bond will guide you. It will show you the way. I looked around at the figures surrounding us, each of them silent but still watching, waiting. I could feel their energy, a hum beneath the surface of everything. They were part of this, whatever it was. What do I do next? I asked, taking another step toward Lyra, my hand still in hers. She smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. You trust. You trust in the bond, and it will lead you where you need to go. And with that, she released my hand and stepped back into the mist. The figures around us began to move, their forms flickering and blending into the shadows of the forest. The energy in the air shifted, and for the first time, I felt a sense of purpose. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew I had to follow. The bond between me and Lyra had awakened something in me, something deep and powerful. And whatever the future held, I was ready to face it. I stepped forward, the path ahead unclear but undeniably mine to take. I stepped forward into the mist, my heart pounding with anticipation. The forest around me felt more alive than ever, the trees swaying and creaking as if they were whispering secrets to each other. The energy Lyra had spoken of hummed in the air, growing stronger with every step I took. I didn't know where I was going, but I could feel the pull, an invisible thread drawing me onward. I had to trust in the bond. I had to believe that the path I was on was the one I was meant to walk. As I moved deeper into the mist, the world around me seemed to shift, the colors blending into an otherworldly glow. The fog thickened, wrapping around me like a shroud. I wasn't sure if I was walking for minutes or hours. Time had lost all meaning. The world felt suspended in a moment of stillness. Then, through the fog, I saw them. More figures, shadowy and indistinct, standing in a clearing ahead. Their forms flickered in and out of view, like they were part of the mist itself. I hesitated, but the pull was undeniable. I continued forward, my feet moving almost of their own accord. As I drew closer, I could make out their faces. Their features were human-like, but different, subtle yet unmistakable differences that marked them as something other. They didn't look like Lyra, but they radiated the same energy, the same sense of purpose. When I reached the center of the clearing, the figures stepped aside, making way for me. I felt a wave of energy rush through me, like a current of electricity running beneath my skin. It wasn't painful, but it was powerful, and it surged through my veins with an intensity one couldn't ignore. One of the figures, a tall woman with silver hair that shimmered in the mist, stepped forward. She looked at me with eyes that glowed like stars in the dark. "You have arrived," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. I felt the weight of her words, the gravity of the moment sinking in. The time has come. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could barely think, the energy around me overwhelming. "You are the bridge," the woman continued, her gaze unwavering. "You have the power to restore the balance, but first, you must face the trial." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. A trial? What kind of trial? I wanted to ask, but the question felt too big, too daunting. What trial? I finally managed to say, my voice hoarse. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she raised her hand, and the mist around us began to swirl. It shifted and parted, revealing a strange formation of rocks in the center of the clearing. The rocks were arranged in a circle, and at the center was a glowing stone, pulsing with an energy that matched the one I felt inside me. The woman's eyes never left me as she spoke again. "This is the trial, Ethan. You must approach the stone and claim its power. Only then will you be ready for what comes next." The words hit me like a wave. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for any of it. But something deep inside me, something awakened by Lyra's touch, by the bond we shared, told me that I didn't have a choice. I had to face this trial. I took a deep breath, gathering the strength I didn't know I had, and walked toward the glowing stone. The moment my fingers brushed against its surface, a rush of energy filled me, surging through my entire being. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I felt as if I was floating, disconnected from the world around me. But then, slowly, the sensations began to settle. The energy I had felt before was still there, but now it was more focused, more powerful. I had claimed the stone's power, and with it, a new sense of purpose. The trial had begun, and I was ready. Whatever lay ahead, I knew one thing for sure: I was no longer just a man lost in a foreign world. I was part of something far greater, something that had been waiting for me to awaken. I stood there, my fingers still tingling from the glowing stone's energy, the rush of power flowing through my veins. The clearing around me had grown quieter, the figures standing in the distance watching me, their eyes glowing with an unreadable intensity. The woman with silver hair, her presence had become even more imposing, her gaze piercing through me as if she were evaluating me, weighing my every action. I could feel the stone's power settling within me, resonating with the bond one had formed with Lyra. It was as if the two forces, the stone's energy and the connection between me and Lyra, had become one. My heart beat faster, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I had truly understood what I had just done. But before I could dwell on it, the woman spoke. "The power you have claimed is only the beginning," she said, her voice calm but filled with gravity. "It is the key to unlocking the balance, but it will not be easy. You must now face the trials within yourself. Only by understanding your own power will you be able to fulfill your role." Her words sent a chill through me. Trials within myself? I wasn't sure what that meant, but I knew it had something to do with the bond, the energy, that had been awakened inside me. I had always thought of myself as just a man, a simple human, thrown into an extraordinary situation. But now, everything had changed. The connection with Lyra, the strange energy I had felt, the glowing stone, it all seemed to be part of a much larger picture, a picture I wasn't sure I was ready to see. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice steady, though my mind was racing. The woman with the silver hair looked at me for a long moment, and then she nodded slowly. "You must seek the answers within. The bond you share with Lyra will guide you. But you must trust yourself, Ethan. Only then will you truly understand your role in this." Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that pressed down on me. Trust myself. How could I trust myself when I barely understood what was happening? I had no answers, only more questions. But there was one thing I was sure of: I had come this far, and I couldn't turn back now. The woman gestured to the stone at my feet. "Step forward. The trials will begin when you are ready." I looked at the glowing stone, still pulsing with energy, and then back at the figures surrounding me. They stood silent, unmoving, but their presence was unmistakable. They were waiting for me, just as Lyra had. I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest, and placed my hand on the stone again. The moment my fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through me. This time, it wasn't just a flash of light or a brief pulse. It was a wave, an overwhelming rush that seemed to fill every part of my being. For a moment, I felt like I was no longer just a man standing in a forest. I felt like I was part of something much larger, something that transcended space and time. And then, just as quickly as it had come, the energy faded. I stood there, breathing heavily, my mind buzzing with new sensations. It was as if the stone had opened something within me, a door I didn't know existed. The figures were gone, and the mist had cleared, leaving only the stillness of the forest. I was alone again, but I didn't feel alone. The bond with Lyra was still there, stronger than ever. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky, the stars shimmering faintly through the mist. I didn't know what was coming next, but I felt a new sense of clarity, a purpose that I hadn't had before. Whatever this trial was, whatever awaited me, I was ready. I had to be. For Lyra, for the balance, and for myself.